Well, first thing to say, being the last in the session, you get to discover that everything that you plan to say has been said before, which has, of course, an advantage because we share the principle of the information governance and so on. The advantage is that we are moving in the same direction. Of course, now I will try to add something more practical that we are doing at the European Food Safety Authority. So what do we do at EFSA? So EFSA is performing scientific advice on issues related to food and feed safety. So mainly to simplify, let's say, the process, we receive a mandate from the Commission. We collect data, we perform risk assessment, we group experts coming from all over Europe, and then we issue a scientific opinion, declaring that a specific substance is either dangerous or not dangerous for human health. So at the moment, what we do, and until 3-4 years ago, the opinion issued by EFSA were a simple PDF document with, of course, a reference to the data, reference to the scientific publications supporting the study that we did. Let's say that since 2015, we have a new vision in EFSA. So we want to have trusted science for safe food. And basically, we set up a strategy to support and to fulfill this vision. And we start up together with the strategy a set of programs to achieve the strategic objectives of the organization. The information management program, for which, let's say, information governance is one of the projects, was launched in 2015 with the mandate of coordinate and supervise a set of projects which deal with informations, supporting the strategic objective of Open EFSA. So what we want to do is really, together with the scientific opinion, we want to provide to our stakeholders the data we use, the mathematical model, really the source code that we use to process this data. We want to give to them all the information, all the papers, and also information about the experts that have been participating for issuing this opinion. Because, of course, what we want to have, we want to increase the transparency, and we want to be able to also attract new experts and make things very, very clear for the outside. So, what is the main goal of the information program is providing insight on EFSA information. So basically, we want to establish a new corporate information reference architecture, which is based on ERA, of course. We want to set up an information IT framework which will enable us to implement this strategy. We want to, and here it's the main point of today, setting up a corporate information governance, implementing common metadata and thesaurus, and using as much as possible open standards. And we want also to enhance digital channel to communicate our findings and our studies. So we started in 2015, and we did, as a first thing, an analysis on the information in EFSA. And we came up with this very interesting graphs, which is real. And in EFSA, we call it the EFSA information spaghetti graph. So what we got is we got 114 business information entities. And with the business information entity, we mean some piece of information which has a value for our, let's say, business or some significance. So I give you some example. For example, the opinion, the scientific opinion is a business information entity. A person is a business information entity. A scientific meeting. So as I said before, we collect experts, we group them together, we make them studying the problem and coming up with a scientific opinion. So the scientific meeting is an information entity which is used by our logistic services to organize the venue and to organize the meeting, as it was done today for this meeting. It's used by our scientific units to really drive the agenda and drive the discussion toward our objective. It's used by our legal services because we need to understand and to verify that there are no potential conflict of interest with the expert participating to the opinion that we issue. And of course, it's also used by our financial team to then provide the reimbursement to our experts and to the participants of the meeting. On the top, we have 38 IT tools. So these 114 business information entities are shared and sometimes duplicated among different tools. And in the bottom, we have grouped basically these business information entities into 10 different business areas. I will have a slide dedicated to that. So, of course, given this picture, we have a clear need of master data management. We want to avoid duplicating information. We want to make sure that the information is consistent along all our, let's say, infrastructure. We need metadata management because, of course, if a business information entity is moving from one system to the others, we need to describe it correctly in order to find it and to identify them easily. We need an IT framework because exchanging a lot of information, even as Estonia did with the road project, we are aiming to do it at a smaller scale, but we are aiming to introduce that also in our landscape. But of course, we need also to define a decision framework. So define ownership and accountability on data and information. So we are doing something similar as the information catalog done in ECDC. And we also want to define strict processes and policies on how to manage data. So this is mainly the information governance part that we are implementing. So these are the 10 information areas that we have identified in EFSA, are based mainly on the services, the internal services that we provide. I'm not going to go into details for each of them, but mainly our objective here is to have an high-level grouping of our assets and define a steward dedicated to each of these areas. So we pass from the processes, from the evidence, the data. The second one, EFSA evidence, is really the biggest part of the organization. So in there are the data collections, the literature, the, let's say, mathematical models. So everything that we use scientifically to issue our opinion. Library, finance, general administration, IT information, portfolio, program and project management, HR data, planning and monitoring, communication and collaboration. So this is basically our areas. And this is the roadmap for the information governance project. So the first step that we achieved few months ago is really to set up a structure and define the right terms of reference. So what is the objective of this structure? Is really to take decision, making sure that all the key stakeholders are involved. So we want to make sure that decisions are not taken, let's say, at lower level just for achieving a benefit to a specific project, but we want to take a decision with take into account all the possible, let's say, constraints and impact on other areas, because the benefit that you want to achieve is to obtain the right decision at the EFSA level, at the organization level. Then we defined the information governance role and the responsibility. Of course, we are continuously defining and adjust the roadmap because information governance is starting as a project, but then it continues as a process. So the information catalog, as it was explained before, is a living document. So it will be modified during the the execution of the process. Define an information asset catalog, and we have already a draft one. As I said before, we have these 114 business information entities, and the information that we associate to this business information entity are very, very similar to the one that you presented before. And of course, as a last step, we want to review and define and upgrade the existing policies and processes to make sure that information governance is embedded in our organization at each level. So this is the structure that we define. So we do have a sponsor, and the sponsor is at the management team level, which is the chief executive level of the organization, and the sponsor has mainly the responsibility to, let's say, be a channel between the decision taken at the governance and the executive board level of the organization. Of course, at that level, there might be also some escalation in terms of very difficult decisions to take or decisions which have very political and strategic impacts. Then we have the Information Governance Officer, which is our Data Chief Officer. So this role is the main responsible of taking all decisions regarding information and all information governance operational activities. Then we have an information architect, which is the link between our, let's say, information, the processes, and the IT tools. So we want to ensure that the decisions that we take at this board are feasible, and we want also to be able to detect any possible impacts on the existing processes in the organization. Then we have a list of information stewards. As I said before, one for each information area. The information steward is really the person who knows about the processes that this information is dealing with. So it can point up to possible, let's say, impacts on the existing processes. And the information managers, which are domain-specific experts. Like, for example, an information area data collection, we do have data collection on food consumption, on pesticides, or on other specific area, and in that case, we will have an information manager for each area. So, how the governance work? Basically, we are now running a communication campaign to make our organization aware that it exists and how to engage the information governance. So whenever there is a project, a process, a business unit who need to modify or to change or to access specific information, it sends a request to the information governance officer who, based on the catalog that we have, will involve all the relevant actors. So information architect, data protection officers, if you need it, information security officer, and so on. And then based on this specific meeting, we hope that we will get probably we won't get always good decision, but we mitigate the risk of taking bad decision. So that's everything from me.
Very much, Guido, and very well within time. We have some time for one or two questions. Please.
It would be interesting to find out a bit about planned next steps in terms of implementing information governance across the entire organization.
Yes. So next step is really communication. It's really communication and, let's say, try to manage the resistance that we get in the organization. Because as it was said before, when we came up with the information governance project, the first reaction was yet another governance. So people were really thinking that we were going to complicate their life. So we want really to perform communication and go into practical examples. So try to get some low-hanging fruit. So try to apply this governance to specific short-term projects and verify the benefit that this will give to the organization.
Do we have other questions? Yes. Susanne.
You managed, you are also creating an architecture based on IRA, the European Interoperability Reference Architecture. I heard from Gaetan that they are also creating a reference architecture. So what is your experience with architecture supporting the process?
We did have last year some collaboration with ISA on the ERA model. So we want to define an architecture which is as close as possible, mapping the principle and the layer defined by ERA. Of course, we will try to do that.